At exactly 0820 hours local time, the calm airspace east of Taiwan fractured without warning as over 200 unidentified aerial signatures simultaneously appeared on multiple surveillance layers, stretching across a 40 nautical mile arc like a rapidly expanding digital storm. At first, operators inside the US Indo-Pacific Command surveillance grid believed it to be a sensor anomaly, a glitch triggered by atmospheric interference or overlapping civilian traffic. But within seconds, the pattern began to stabilize, and what initially looked like noise evolved into something far more structured, far more deliberate. Each contact maintained precise spacing, altitude discipline, and synchronized velocity vectors, forming a dynamic lattice in the sky that no civilian system could replicate. This was not random interference. This was a controlled deployment. And within the classified data streams linking early warning aircraft, naval radar arrays, and orbital ISR assets, one conclusion emerged almost instantly. China had just launched a coordinated drone swarm operation on an unprecedented scale. By 0821 hours, the situation escalated from observation to active threat analysis. Signals intelligence confirmed that the swarm was not relying on conventional satellite navigation. Instead, each drone appeared to be operating on a decentralized mesh network, exchanging real-time positional data through encrypted short-range bursts, allowing the entire formation to behave as a single adaptive organism. This meant that even if individual units were destroyed, the swarm would reconfigure instantly, maintaining operational integrity without reliance on a central command node. For US defense planners, this was the nightmare scenario they had been modeling for years. A system designed specifically to overwhelm, confuse, and ultimately break the targeting logic of advanced defense networks. At the same time, Taiwanese air defense radars began tracking the swarm with increasing difficulty. The drones were small, likely low observable platforms with composite materials minimizing radar cross-section, and they flew at staggered altitudes designed to exploit radar coverage gaps. Some units skimmed just above sea level, blending into wave clutter, while others operated at higher altitudes, acting as relay nodes and electronic warfare platforms. The formation itself began to morph, compressing and expanding in real time, as if probing the defensive perimeter for weaknesses. But the most alarming development was not their movement, it was their signal. By 0822 hours, electromagnetic spectrum monitors detected a sudden surge of broadband interference, emanating directly from within the swarm. Unlike traditional jamming systems that broadcast from a fixed platform, this interference was distributed, each drone contributing a fragment of the overall signal, creating a layered, multi-frequency disruption field that blanketed the region. Within seconds, GPS reliability degraded across multiple platforms. Tactical data links began experiencing latency spikes, and then, without warning, the first major system went dark. Inside the Combat Information Center of a US Navy destroyer operating east of Taiwan, radar operators watched in disbelief as their screens began to flicker. Targets multiplied, split, disappeared, and reappeared in impossible positions. What had been a clean, tactical picture dissolved into chaos, hundreds of ghost contacts flooding the system, overwhelming tracking algorithms and forcing the fire control computers into a constant state of recalculation. The radar wasn't destroyed. It was drowned. By 0823 hours, the situation escalated to critical. The SPI series radar systems, among the most advanced in the world, began experiencing temporary saturation as the swarm's electronic warfare layer intensified. Instead of disabling the radar outright, the drones fed it conflicting data, real targets masked by false echoes, timing distortions, and signal reflections engineered to mimic legitimate threats. This was not brute force jamming. This was precision-crafted electronic deception, designed to make the system doubt its own inputs. For approximately 3 minutes, the most advanced naval detection network on the planet was effectively blind, not because it couldn't see, but because it could no longer trust what it was seeing. At the same time, airborne early warning aircraft attempting to maintain situational awareness encountered the same phenomenon. Their long-range radar sweeps returned fragmented data, forcing operators to cross-reference multiple sensor layers just to confirm the existence of a single object. Communication channels grew tense as pilots reported intermittent tracking loss, with some describing entire sections of airspace as empty one moment and overloaded the next. The battlefield had become a shifting illusion where perception itself was under attack. Then, at 0824 hours, the swarm executed its most critical maneuver. Without any detectable central command signal, the formation abruptly split into multiple subgroups, each accelerating toward different vectors along Taiwan's defensive perimeter. Some units descended sharply, simulating attack profiles consistent with loitering munitions, while others climbed to higher altitudes, amplifying their electronic warfare output. This sudden fragmentation forced defensive systems into a dilemma: engage multiple potential threats simultaneously, or risk allowing unknown units to penetrate deeper into the airspace. But just as quickly as the maneuver began, something unexpected happened. At 0825 hours, the entire swarm reduced its electronic output. The interference field collapsed almost instantly, and radar systems began to recover. Ghost targets faded, signal clarity returned, and one by one, the drone contacts began to disappear from tracking screens. Not destroyed, not intercepted, but simply gone. Whether they had retreated, powered down, or transitioned into passive modes was unclear. What remained was silence. A silence that lasted just long enough for analysts to understand what had just occurred. This was not an attack. This was a demonstration. In a controlled window of less than 3 minutes, China had effectively shown that it could degrade, confuse, and temporarily neutralize some of the most advanced detection systems in the world without firing a single missile. By combining swarm intelligence, distributed electronic warfare, and adaptive formation tactics, it introduced a new paradigm of conflict, one where dominance is not achieved through destruction, but through denial of perception. And the implications were immediate, because if a radar system cannot distinguish reality from illusion, if a defense network cannot trust its own data, then every decision that follows becomes a gamble. In modern warfare, seeing the enemy is everything. But what happens when the enemy decides what you're allowed to see?